In 1868, the United States government signed the Fort Laramie Treaty. This agreement legally established the Great Sioux Reservation, a massive tract of land spanning half of present-day South Dakota, set aside for the exclusive use of the Sioux Nation. Crucially, the treaty recognized absolute Sioux ownership of the Black Hills. That legal boundary held until 1874, when an expedition led by General George Custer confirmed the presence of gold inside the Black Hills. Almost immediately, thousands of white prospectors illegally flooded across the border into sovereign Sioux territory to stake their claims. The United States government made only nominal efforts to stop them. The country was in the grip of a severe economic depression following the Panic of 1873, and the Grant administration desperately needed an injection of Black Hills gold to stabilize the tanking national economy. Sioux leaders categorically refused to sell their sacred hills. This created a strict constitutional and diplomatic deadlock. The United States was bound by its own treaty, and the Sioux were entirely within their legal rights to stay. Intense economic pressure forced the Grant administration to manufacture a legally dubious reason for war. To get the gold, they would have to find a way to break their own treaty without appearing to be the aggressors. On November 3, 1875, President Ulysses S. Grant convened a secret meeting at the White House with his cabinet secretaries and top military commanders. Together, they contrived a strategy to bypass the Fort Laramie Treaty entirely. They decided to issue a strict executive ultimatum. The government ordered that all Sioux currently hunting in the unceded territories must abandon their seasonal camps and report to federal agencies by January 31, 1876. The order carried a severe penalty. Any Sioux who failed to comply with this sudden deadline would be officially stripped of their treaty protections and classified as an enemy of the state. Complying with this order was a physical impossibility. The government was demanding that thousands of families pack up their entire encampments and march hundreds of miles across the northern plains in the dead of winter. Doing so would have been a near-certain death sentence. This ultimatum functioned as a deliberate casus belli, a justification for war engineered specifically because the government knew the Sioux could not obey it. The January 31st deadline passed. Predictably, the Sioux bands wintering in the Powder River country remained exactly where they were. The very next day, on February 1st, the Department of the Interior officially washed its hands of the diplomatic effort. The matter was handed over to the military, culminating in this February 3rd memo from the Secretary of War, confirming that hostilities be commenced. With the ink dry on that correspondence, the Sioux were no longer treated as a sovereign nation negotiating a land dispute. They were now classified strictly as hostile targets. This quiet paper shuffle in Washington was the exact mechanism that legally justified a massive military invasion of sovereign territory. The man tasked with executing this invasion was Lieutenant General Philip Sheridan, the architect of the campaign and commander of the Division of the Missouri. Sheridan commanded the entire Great Plains from his headquarters in Chicago. His jurisdiction stretched across the massive western frontier all the way to the Rocky Mountains. To defeat the Sioux, Sheridan relied on a specific military doctrine. He believed the army should attack when the environment itself was at its most hostile. During the summer months, Plains Indians were highly mobile, easily outmaneuvering heavy cavalry columns. But in the winter, defreezing temperatures forced them to set up permanent camps and dedicate their resources to keeping their families warm and their horse herds fed. Sheridan activated regional commanders to put this winter strike into motion, ordering Brigadier General George Crook and Brigadier General Alfred Terry to mobilize their forces. Sheridan's strategy relied on weaponizing the brutal sub-zero weather to immobilize a superior guerrilla force. In March 1876, the execution phase began as General Crook's forces marched north from Fort Fetterman toward the Powder River Valley. The soldiers immediately ran into the brutal reality of the northern plains. Temperatures plunged to 40 degrees below zero. Crook's March expedition was a catastrophic failure. His men suffered from severe frostbite, the supply lines froze, and the command faced starvation. The expedition fizzled out entirely due to bitter cold and exposure. Sheridan's ultimate weapon, the winter itself, had backfired. It stalled the U.S. Army rather than the Sioux. Because the winter campaign failed to bring the Sioux in, the War Department was forced to escalate to a massive spring and summer offensive. Sheridan authorized a convergence strategy. He sent thousands of troops marching in 3 separate massive columns from the south, east, and west, intending to trap the Sioux and Cheyenne in the Bighorn region. Riding at the spearhead of General Terry's eastern column was Lieutenant Colonel George Custer and the 7th Cavalry. This massive escalation of force traces directly back to the contrived November White House meeting and the subsequent paper trail. The annihilation of the 7th Cavalry at the Little Bighorn was the terminal consequence of the calculated bureaucratic strategy engineered in Washington to seize the Black Hills.